Hey there everybody, Eric from Outer Limitless coming at you today with another video. Now in today's video, I'm going to talk to you about the dirty and unreliable 22 LR. Now before I start this entire video, I'm going to say I am absolutely not an expert. I'm an enthusiast at best, but what I'm going to share with you today is my experience, the things that 22 LR have kind of shown me about firearms, their capabilities, their weaknesses, and what this little dirty round might do to your firearms. Now, most specifically, I'm talking to you today about my experience with my SIG P322. And this is important because I think each firearm might have different characteristics. I think each type of ammo might have different characteristics. So specifically today, I'm talking about my unjacketed ball ammo 22 LR, a couple of different types that I've been using, pretty cheap range ammo, very cheap bulk ammo in boxes. I'm not talking about kind of nice precision 22 LR. I'm talking about the cheap stuff. And again, most specifically running with my SIG P322. Now, the nice thing about what I do, I keep a lot of statistics. In fact, I keep stats on every single range session I've ever gone to, every single shot I've ever taken, and with each one of my handguns. So I can kind of give you some feedback into what my experience was. And I've kind of been going through some things and trying to figure out where I'm at. Now, I started to realize at my last range session with my P322 that just around 500 rounds after having cleaned the gun and after about 500 rounds of shooting, once it got to the 460, 480, and pushing to around the 500 round mark, this started having significant malfunctions. It wasn't ejecting right, stovepiping all over the place, giving me a real difficult time to where I pretty much needed to rack in between each round, eject my magazine, reload rounds. It was a disaster. So you can see in this footage here that I was clearly having a miserable time, and that's very problematic for a number of reasons. First off, as I mentioned, of course, reliability issues. That has me concerned about the reliability of the firearm. Now, the good thing for me is this is pretty much just a range gun that I can use to test different equipment, test optics. In that particular video, I was testing a weapon light. So if I have unreliability, that doesn't necessarily matter, but that's not a good thing because, of course, I can't trust this firearm for reliability purposes. And not only that, but it really makes me question how viable is 22 for scenarios where you really might want it. Maybe you're hunting varmints. Maybe you have last-ditch self-defense. Maybe you have to give this to somebody who's not quite as strong or can't really handle the recoil of a heavier load. 22 might be your only choice. So, again, keep in mind the fact this is dirty, cheap, kind of bulk ammo. There may be better ammo out there, but again, I'm just going with what my experience is. And just for the sake of the argument, again, I have around 500 rounds through my P322 since I cleaned it last. Well, just so happens, looking through my stats, that my P226 9mm also having literally 500 rounds. So the two of these have gone the exact same distance in terms of round count without being cleaned, yet here I have malfunction after malfunction after malfunction. Here I have zero malfunctions, literally zero. And I'll go even furthermore, my Canik Mete SFT, which I'm intentionally not cleaning this at all until it has a malfunction. I'm at over 1,300 rounds. Now, I don't use this a ton, but again, more than 1,300 rounds and I've never cleaned it and I've had zero malfunctions. So you think about that and, well, maybe that's telling you something about the ammo. Now you might also say, well, maybe that's telling you something about the gun. I'm going to try to prove that through now cleaning this and seeing if I can go a full 100 rounds, no problem, without any malfunctions. Because if this is clean and I can shoot 100 rounds without any malfunctions, that's telling me it's not the gun. It's the fact that it's incredibly dirty with incredibly dirty ammo that's creating reliability issues. So with that, I'm going to take a quick look at this. I have a Borescope. Now, I've covered this in a prior review, but it's really nice to have a Borescope because you can look inside, kind of see what's going on. So let's look at these firearms in a little bit of detail. So, as we get into this, first off, I'm just going to literally go straight down the barrel. And right away, I mean, gritty looking. You know, I have a couple of ways we can do this. So I can literally look straight down the barrel, and then I can also put a mirror on this, which will allow me to look in multiple directions. And first off, really, really gritty looking. Looking at the lands and grooves, really kind of hard to see. Now, I've taken a look at this in the past where you can see what appears to be a whole bunch of fouling all built up all along as I get towards the breech face and towards the chamber here. You can see actually this way, up and down, and entering into the chamber. So right here, starting to see a whole bunch of buildup. It doesn't look terrible, but that's pretty well coated. And then, hard to say, let me get the mirror on here, and we'll try to get a closer look at the rifling inside that barrel. So here, as we take a look at the lands and grooves, everything so far still looking fairly sharp. And you can see some sort of funny marks and maybe some swirly spots, but other than that, I mean, so far, everything looks pretty reasonable. I really don't expect to see too much in the way of buildup in the barrel itself. Maybe a couple little spots. Clearly, you can see some chunks of things. I don't know whether that's, unspent gunpowder or, little chunks of metal that comes off of the, the actual ball itself. But here, I mean, look at, that's like brass. At least it looks to be brass from the casing. Probably chunks that just get blown off, or maybe even caught and sort of stripped off. And you can see in a few spots, this whole thing is, fairly caked. Again, not terrible. Not too bad. But this gives you an indication of what this looks like dirty. So after that, I'll clean this up. So now here with the 226, without the mirror, looking straight down the barrel, you can see it's not terrible. Actually, all things considered, looks pretty good. Certainly a lot less in the way of grit, a lot less in the way of chunks. Looks to be smoother overall. And as we work our way down, here you can see into the chamber. So again, it's not perfect, but it's not terrible either. So now let's look at it with the mirror. Again, taking a look at the lands and grooves. Everything looking pretty good. Again, far less in the way of what just looks like debris. Pretty smooth. Clearly you can see it needs to be cleaned, but it's not terrible. Again, all of this looks far cleaner. Much cleaner. Doesn't look like it has all that buildup like in the 22. So, pretty good comparison there. And that would show you, maybe a little bit of debris, but that would show you how dirty that 22 really can get and really can be. Now real quick, just for the sake of the argument, both these have right around 1,000 total rounds through them without cleaning everything deep down and inside. And as I run my finger in there, fairly dirty, not crazy, but all down through the mechanics there, you can see. Versus with the Canik, ooh, it's actually a lot worse. So it's kind of interesting. Look at how dirty that is. As I told you, I'm intentionally not cleaning this thing. Look at that. But man, that still runs. So with that, let's clean the 322 and we'll see how it goes. All right, so hopefully things looking a little bit better. A little bit of dust, a little bit of lint, but vastly improved. So that's a good deal. And coming up, that's all the way in to that chamber. In fact, let's just rock this back. Still a little bit kind of messy looking in there, but I feel like that's kind of a casting on the firearm rather than any sort of lead buildup. And it definitely does look better overall. Well, we'll see one way or another. I mean, at this point, no malfunctions, with the exception of that weird feed issue. But I had absolutely no malfunctions in 100 rounds. So was it the gun or was it the ammo? I do have to say, I think it was the ammo. Because to me, the rest of this ran perfectly. Whereas before, I definitely had issues on many of my follow-up shots. And here, it ran just fine. And so, all right, guys, back from the range with my P322. Now, at this point, you can see that did perform well after 100 rounds. After a significant cleaning, 100 rounds, and almost perfect reliability, with the exception of those weird mag insert double feed ejection things that were going on. That's a different story. Maybe it has something to do with this firearm's actual reliability, but I would go as far as to say that's a different story from what we saw with the ammo. I do believe that the vast majority of the malfunctions with my 322 come from the dirty ammo. I use the exact same ammo in both scenarios. Scenario A, with well over 1,000 rounds through the gun and well over 500 rounds through the barrel without cleaning. And then now, a fully cleaned firearm, basically bringing it back to as close to factory conditions as I can with my skills and my ability to clean this. And it worked well. So I do have to say, I would go as far as to believe the ammo is the cause of the problem. Now, are there a ton of variables in all of this? Of course there are. Is this a perfect test? No. But I think in terms of, what 22LR means and its dirty nature, this does prove that you just have to stay on top of maintenance, and very regular maintenance with something that's going to be shooting 22, and especially cheap ball ammo, unjacketed, in a box. That just goes to show that 22LR, it's dirty and it's unreliable. So all right guys, thanks for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you found it a little bit informative. If you like this content, do me a favor and take a look at the rest of my Outer Limitless family of channels. You're here on Outer Limitless 2, which is the tactical and firearm side of things. My primary Outer Limitless channel, hiking, camping, backpacking, EDC, all that good stuff. Outer Limitless Blades, which covers all the sharp and pointy things, and Outer Limitless Lights. From headlamps, EDC lights, indoor, outdoor lighting, you name it. That's the Outer Limitless brand of channels. So, thank you guys again for following along. Take care now. See you soon.